Hello, my Stampin' friends. Welcome to Movie Monday with Jody Brackbill, Stampin' Queen. This time I'm going to show you this gorgeous card that we made at Wow Wednesday class. This is definitely a class I do that's advanced techniques, a little bit stepped up. The idea I had actually shared on my Facebook page had come from the Creativity Cave, and I'll show you those cards later. But for Wow, I wanted to have it not be quite as labor intensive, even though this still is a labor of love to create this card. So I did want to do a quick movie to show you how we created this gorgeous card. So the first thing that we do is to die cut black roses and the black leaves using the Rose Wonder framelit set that's in the Occasions catalog. So you're going to go ahead and cut that out in black. You don't need any of the inside pieces. You can throw those away or save them and use them for another project. And I only want these two bottom leaves. So I am going to cut off that third leaf. Now, if you wanted to keep it, that's fine. You can have 3 leaves on your card, but it was a little less work just to do the two leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that one off just so I have these two. So once I have those cut, I am going to take the outline and a piece of lighter colored paper. This is Sahara Sand, but something that's fairly light. You could probably use vanilla on this card too. And you're going to trace your cutout onto that lighter colored paper with a pencil. And what I did, actually, I have a trick. Let me show you how I did this a little bit easier. So I took the piece of cardboard or the thicker matte board paper that is in our designer series paper packs, like the 12 by 12, and I die cut out my 2 rose shapes. That is actually fairly thick. It's not as thick as cardboard, but it is a nice thick heavyweight cardstock, and so that makes it much nicer to trace because this one can be a little bit flimsy when you're trying to trace that. So I just have these cut out and then I keep them in with my dies. So if I need to do some tracing, I have them ready to go. So you're just going to very quickly and carefully trace that with a pencil to have a solid template. Okay, so just very easy like that. And then you're going to do the same with your leaves. Now these of course are going to have the 3 leaves because you might need this whole rose piece for another project if you wanted to do a bigger piece. So I didn't cut out my roses on, or my leaves on this one for 2 leaves. So then what you need to do is cut out, and this is a hand scissor cut. You want to cut this out. And you want to cut inside the line that you've just drawn, so that's a little bit smaller than your die cut. Now you do not want to trace your die because it's going to be way bigger than you need. You're going to have to do a lot more trimming. So go ahead and trace the piece that you cut out, and through the magic of television, I actually have them right here so you didn't have to watch me do all that cutting. So those are my 2 pieces that I am going to overlay my outline on, and then I'm going to glue that down. So the next step that I'm going to do is take my die and I'm going to run it back through with a piece of real red cardstock and a piece of old olive cardstock, and you can see that I've done the old olive. It's still in there. Now this is the part that I learned from Dina at Creativity Cave, which is very cool because if you're doing multiple colored roses, you need all those little pieces and you don't want to lose any of them, because if you lose one piece, you have got to run the whole die and all the pieces back and get all the pieces back again. So she took a little bit of the press and seal Glad wrap, and before, now you want to do this after you've die cut it. You do not want to run the press and seal through the Big Shot machine or it's going to cut it as well. And then I just kind of pulled it and stretched it to activate the sticky part and just have that pushed onto my piece that I just cut out. Then very carefully, I took my die brush and just kind of ran it over top of that just to loosen up the pieces a little bit. You don't have to push really hard. And then just very carefully, you're going to start to peel off your die from your cardstock. And you actually, I like to keep the outline in with it so that I know where all those little pieces go. So now they're kind of stuck there. They're really not going to go anywhere. So you'll have a leaf, and then you'll also do the same thing with your rose so that you've got all your pieces, and that's on the press and seal again. So using some fast fuse, I'm going to put that all over my Sahara sand piece, just so that I have adhesive everywhere. I think I'm rocking the cradle again here with the, okay, so just so that that's pretty sticky. Now this stuff is like our red line sticky tape. It's very, very sticky, and it's not very forgiving. So just be careful when you're doing this, because it is a little bit tough to work with because it's so super sticky that if you get your rose on the wrong way, you might have some issues. And I'm having a hard time seeing because there's a glare on my workspace, but there's pretty much the gist of it. Okay, so you've got your rose now attached with a background. If you have any little pieces of the Sahara sand that are sticking out, you can just trim those down very easily. Just try and be careful not to actually cut your outline of your black piece. You just want to cut kind of underneath of it a little bit. And then you're going to do the same thing with your leaves as well. And I'm going to leave those, since this has its sticky strip on. So the next piece in the puzzle is to take all these pieces off. Now these are not sticky from the press and seal. They're actually going to adhere because of the fast fuse, but it still does hold them in place very nicely. So this is where the stained glass part comes in, and you might need a little poker tool, or you might need some tweezers, because you are going to be working with some teeny tiny pieces here. But you're just going to fill in all these pieces that you die cut out, just like you're putting together a puzzle. Okay, now what you could do if you wanted to do some shading or sponging so that your leaves have some dimension, you would do that before you put them back into your outline. If you wanted to do embossing, you could do that. You could also put crystal effects on. You could actually crystal effect the whole thing. I've seen one of those on Pinterest. That was just beautiful. And what I did with one of my samples that I did in purples was to do the Winker Stella pen. And while it was out of the outline, I did Wink of Stella all over the petals, and it just had a gorgeous sheen to it. It wasn't real glittery, but just enough that it had some nice shimmer to it, and it turned out really, really pretty. Okay, so we're almost getting there, putting all these little pieces in. Oops. It does get a little bit tricky, and I actually have no fingernails right now, so that makes it a little bit harder for me to get those wee little pieces in there. But leaving them inside your red outline does really help me to know exactly where they need to go in. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than ones I normally do because this card is definitely multiple steps. So almost done. There's our final piece of the puzzle. Okay, so is that totally gorgeous or what? So many of you were excited to learn how to do this technique. And like I said, we did do this at my WOW class. A lot of you thought it was stamping, and that's why it was a little bit concerning, because your ink pads weren't coming out as beautiful as mine were. And that's because it's not ink, it's actually paper. And then of course you have another red outline. So save that, because that's ready to go for another project. So you're going to do the same thing with the leaves, same exact way. So I'm actually going to do that off camera so that you don't have to watch, but I'll show you the finished project when I return. Okay, so now I've got my leaves done. I'm just going to take that final piece out of my leaf and just attach that right inside my outline. So there we go. We've got 2 leaves and we've got our gorgeous rose. And I think I'm going to just trim, got a little bit of cardstock sticking out right there. I don't like that. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And then to finish up my card, get a clean workspace here. I took a piece of real red cardstock. I have that scored, and I just fold that right in half. And then I used some of our really cool, it looks like dictionary paper. I can't think of what this is called, but anyway, it looks like it came out of an old book, and it's just really pretty vintage paper. I really like that. I'll look it up and then make sure I stick that in the captions here. So I'm going to attach that piece to another piece of our basic black, and this is just a 1/8 border. And then I use some of our Venetian ribbon, crochet trim, I think is what it's called. And I'm just going to tack a little bit, just those 2 edges. I always like to just tack the edges around the back like that, so that you're not wasting your gorgeous ribbon on the back of a card, which nobody sees. Again, I put some more adhesive over the ends so they don't pop off. Little adhesive on here. And this card layout came right from the Creativity Cave. I just changed up the colors a little bit when I created this one for my class. And I think it looks like the Beauty and the Beast movie, the cartoon that Disney did, the stained glass window at the beginning in the castle with the rose. That's what that reminds me of. It's a Beauty and the Beast card. Then I took another piece of the paper from the same designer pack. I used the numbers, but it does have stripes on the other side, so you could use that if you prefer. The only thing I thought was it felt like it sort of started giving me a headache when I looked at all those stripes. We're going to attach this to the front of my card. I'm actually up a little bit high on my ribbon. I would want to put that down a little bit lower, I believe, but we're going to be okay for this sake. I think I am going to change that, so I'm not going to attach my rose just yet. So what I did then was I looked at my rose and I attached my leaves with how I imagined they would be sticking out the edge, and I just held it together. And you can mono adhesive it together, but I just stuck it together with our Stampin' Dimensionals. Just put a couple of those on there. And then I'll peel those off and stick my rose on the side. Then I always take a smaller piece of trim, and I'm just going to slide that under and tie a knot. I didn't do a bow with this one. Sometimes bows get a little bit frustrating, but just a little knot works perfectly. Pull that tight, and then you can trim it down a little bit, and there's your finished card. So this is what it looks like, my version from Wow Wednesday. And then this is the one that I copied directly from Creativity Cave. I did it in the 3 different shades of blue like she did. That is Island Indigo, Bermuda Bay, and Pool Party, and that is just stinking beautiful. The leaves are also variegated, so I used Old Olive and Pear Pizzazz on that one, but with the same exact technique. And what you would do is you cut out all 3 roses using the 3 different colors. Using your press and seal wrap is what helps hold them all in place, and then you just pick off the pieces that you want. And if you do it correctly, you can then get 3 different shades of roses from it. This is my purple one that I did, and I'm not sure if you can tell that I winkered it, and I did those while they were out of the shape. I just did the Winker Stella all over the top and had a little bit of glimmer to it. So those are my beautiful stained glass roses. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week for another Movie Monday.